Hey, Andrew and Shaked, I've been in those dry runs, so I can tell you we have a packed real-life examples that will highlight a lot on today's topic. So I'm really excited to moderate this. To those of you who already know Upstream, great to meet you again. To those who don't, Upstream is a cloud-based automotive data platform. We've been in this industry for almost a decade now. And while our main focus has traditionally been on cybersecurity, we have recently announced our expansion into the domain of vehicle quality, which in particular, we're going to talk today about after-sales quality. We've been talking to our customers over the last couple of years because being able to monitor for cybersecurity attacks gave us the capability to really look into other use cases. And some of those use cases, data use cases and data analytics use cases, spun about vehicle quality. And this is today's burning topic, right? Vehicle quality, warranty and recalls, and AI. And we have Andrew and Shaked, who will be your domain expert. But I have a bad habit. By the end of this webinar, you're gonna get 3 main takeaways. So bear those. Proactive quality that we're gonna talk about gives you a competitive edge. And we're gonna talk about that competitive edge and why proactive connected vehicle can give you that. The second thing is that the early detection and investigation is not just a luxury, it really counts in the hundreds of millions of dollars in cost savings. So that's the second key takeaway. And number 3, can't do without it, right? AI and ML and ML in after sales provide a real scalable and optimized data-driven investigation, which is the key of what we're talking about. And we can't get started, right, without really going into a quick pulse check into the automotive industry. And Andrew, how about give us your take on the latest announcements by automakers and the rising financial scrutiny?
Yeah, first and foremost, Arnon, thank you so much to the Upstream security team for having me here today. It's really exciting for me to be able to talk to you guys about something that's really, first and foremost on the minds of the OEMs and automakers today, which is cost reduction, right? And so we just got back from CES last week and had many conversations with OEMs. And again, top of mind for many of them, direct out of the mouths is we need to reduce our costs. And so how do we do that? And how do we do it with AWS? And how can AWS help? And I know Upstream that's what we'll talk about for this webinar, is how you guys are enabling your customers and our customers to lower costs. But in terms of the pulse of the industry, yeah, we're seeing all these different macroeconomic conditions impacting cost all along the supply chain that we've all experienced personally. We're seeing political party turnover from kind of establishment to non-establishment parties. We're seeing new lower cost entries into the market. There are more OEMs on the market today. There's 20% more OEMs than there are 5 years ago. Kind of the legacy OEMs, which have had a stronghold on the market, have seen a 4% decline over their global market share just over last year. And these OEMs are building both. The legacy ones are building both ICE and EV architectures. They're trying to redefine their in-vehicle architecture with these new SDV concepts, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And then at the same time, they're seeing increases in demands from a customer experience perspective.
Yeah. Sorry, I was about to say, doing a spoiler to the end of the webinar, right? I believe you're going to talk about an effective way to really accommodate financial pressure without jeopardizing the long term. And this is what we're going to talk about, just making sure that we're on the same page. Okay, go ahead.
So yeah, I think kind of what we see is a lot of this. We talked to OEMs about connecting their vehicles to the cloud. This is kind of a legacy thing that they've been doing for 15 to 20 years, but we help talk to OEMs about modernizing these connectivity platforms and their data pipelines. And the way we see it at AWS is vehicles are some of the most complex IoT devices, and we hear from OEMs, hey, we have the data, but how do we utilize it to best impact our customers and our bottom line? So we've seen this evolution of data usage and data collection, and we've tried to make it easier at scale at AWS to be able to enable these OEMs to do this. So within AWS, we have a platform called FleetWise that I'll talk about in a second, which uses some normalization techniques, because we see this problem across the industry where we have non-standardized data across the organization within data silos. So OEMs really have a problem with this data standardization, data integration. We work with large and small OEMs that need relatively simplistic data access to that vehicle data themselves to be able to unlock kind of these insights. So within each OEM, they have segmentations, they have silos, they have tech debt, they have resource shortfalls and limited knowledge of how to take that vehicle data, if it's in binary format, and make it into kind of a human readable format so that they can actually unlock these insights and analytics to be able to really reduce their costs and really do their job properly.
Andrew, I really couldn't agree more. And we've seen that across, that this is the biggest challenge in the automotive industry today. And it's the non-standardized nature of data across the organizations. Every manufacturer, every department, every different team within the same company even, they all might be using different formats, structures, and tools to gather and process their data. And that's a huge problem. When data is not consistent or not standardized, it's like trying to fit puzzle pieces from different puzzles together. So it's really hard to understand the full picture of what's really going on with the vehicle's quality. But to me, here's the thing. There's a massive opportunity in aligning and integrating this data across the board. When we can bring it all into a unified platform or a data lake, that's when we can unlock the real power. Suddenly the complex web of data starts telling a clear, actionable story that can help OEMs support potential issues.
Yeah, and so like I mentioned, at AWS, we're trying to make it easier to get the data off the vehicle into a normalized standard format using our services, our core services like IoT Core, IoT FleetWise, and IoT Core helps OEMs connect millions of vehicles to the cloud on a daily basis, and FleetWise helps extract data from those vehicles and send it to the cloud in that standardized format. And so what we like to say at AWS is we remove that undifferentiated heavy lift such that, hey, we make it easy for you to get your data into a standardized format to deliver it to the stakeholders that need it, so that the OEMs can use their resources, to really make differentiation between other OEMs and their customers, right? So they don't have to worry about operationalizing connectivity. They don't have to worry about these data silos. We help provide these services and solutions to deliver the data to the people that need it when they need it.
Okay, so I think the bottom line, what I'm hearing is all comes down to collecting data and prepare it for analytics and AI, right? And then the use cases you can build on top of those. Andrew, can you maybe walk us through the main challenges of connected vehicle data?
Yeah, so I think a lot of the things that we see around connected vehicle data is, number one, there's a lot of it. Number two, how do I ensure that I get the right data at the right time off the vehicle? How do I ensure that that data is in a standardized and normalized fashion within a data lake such that I can democratize the access to that data and send it to the personas that need it when they need it?
Okay, well, if I'm looking at the picture that we're talking about, Shaked, what do you see as the main, right? Being a data analyst, what do you see as one of those main challenges?
Yeah, I want to echo what Andrew just said. One of the biggest challenges is really the need to normalize the data, right? Speaking everyone in the same language. So I would say this is one of the biggest hurdles I've seen across the board.
So I'm just checking if you guys can see the screen back? Yeah. Okay. I think Upstream as a company, right? We first utilized connected vehicle data for cybersecurity use cases, and then we learned quite a lot about the data and how it can be leveraged, right, for cybersecurity use cases. But why does cybersecurity provide that secret sauce? I know that back in the days, right, Shaked, you and I were talking about the digital twin and how does it create value, right? Andrew, I'm gonna throw it at you. It's not the Amazon digital twin, which is used in the design or simulation phase. It's a real live representation of each and every vehicle. As I was mentioning, as we speak, there are 30 million vehicles from 17 different OEMs that are monitored through the Upstream platform, which means, correct me if I'm wrong, but Andrew, you're driving a Subaru?
That's correct.
Okay, I got it right. So if Andrew is driving his Subaru down Peachtree Street and he's doing that 65 miles per hour, God forbid, and the coolant temperature is rising, and Subaru, having used those systems, would know about this. And this is the power, I think, of having a digital representation, right? And this is, I think, in the core of this new revolution, right?
That's correct. And it's great that you guys have, number one, been able to take kind of your core competency, which is vehicle security, and realize that, hey, data is at the source of it all. And you've taken a POC and with a global OEM, and now it's this commercial engagement that we're launching here this year, and you're planning on expanding it globally. So it's really cool for me to see, really exciting for me to see you guys taking exactly what our customers are asking for today. How do we make this data that we've collected off these vehicles for so many years make sense? And this is the top of mind use case for all of these OEMs going forward.
Outstanding. Just thinking out loud, if I look at a typical OEM, right, this is PII and GDPR data. So when we deploy that, right, it's implemented in an EKS, a Kubernetes cluster within the AWS account of that customer. And it connects to the data lake, right? Whether it's Athena or Redshift or Snowflake, it basically, so the data never leaves the premise, right? But if I think, right, being customer obsessed, right? If I think about the KPIs of that team, right? We're talking about after sales quality teams, and their KPIs are tough to meet because they're expected to lower the incident rate during the the first 3 months into service, or 90 days, to a lower digit number. And it's tough. But at the same time, if you're looking at the ramifications, if you're looking at what it could do, right, it could basically drive down the cost that we mentioned earlier on. We're talking about spend, you were showing, right, tens of billions, right? So even if they improve it by 5% or 6% or 15%, like the Deloittes and Accentures of the world predicted they will, it's a huge cost reduction by merely starting the investigation quality and ending it faster, right? But we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves, right? Now that we brought the data challenge to light, let's explore the effective solutions to address that, right? Because building a robust data architecture is all about telling the data story. But the first step is really creating a single source of truth, right? That's the foundational layer. So I know data lakes are a big thing, right? Unified data lakes. Andrew, can you give us maybe the shorthand on that?
Yeah, of course. And so just to continue the story, we've helped the OEMs get the data off the vehicle into the cloud in a normalized, standardized fashion. And so now how do we build a modern data architecture and modern data pipelines to be able to ensure that we can do this quality detection and quality analysis on the data? And so the first step is get the data analytics ready, right? So ensure that the data is in a format that the tools at AWS that we provide, we can actually do what we need to do on top of the data. And so what you guys have built is, it's kind of really cool that you can, investigate and analyze each dimension. So you see here the 4 layers of abstraction, right? You can investigate at the fleet layer, you can investigate at the cohort layer, at a single vehicle, and even down to the component layer, right? So if I can visualize a single vehicle timeline where I have maybe DTCs pop up in month 3, maybe I have to have a service visit, maybe I need to send out an OTA. We can no longer visualize just one vehicle story, but we can see this as a holistic picture of our entire fleet. And we also have a challenge with, like I mentioned earlier, these new SDV implementation, software-defined vehicle, when we're abstracting by the actual OTA version, and we have SBOM impacts. So where you have, OEMs now updating ECUs over the air seamlessly using these SDV procedures, the operational impacts haven't really been discussed at that layer, right? How do we ensure that this version of software on this ECU within this cohort is operating at peak performance? And so, yeah, this is what your platform does. It allows it down to the OTA version of a specific component to be able to provide insights and unlock those long-term benefits for the OEM.
Yeah, I think those are really exciting times, right? The transition that we're experiencing, and over the last 2 years, we've been speaking with many OEMs that struggle with that, and most of them already have some sort of data lake implementation, whether it's fully transitioned or en route to that. And there's a centralized data lake and best practices, but is it truly enough for context?
Yeah, I think the goal is simple, right? When we're talking to these OEMs is, hey, how do we find these quality issues and these outliers and these anomalies? How do we ensure we can patch the issue maybe with an OTA or a quick call into the dealer for a hardware fix? And hey, if the dealer actually knows what hardware needs to be swapped out before you get in, rather than you get to the dealership and they say, hey, we need to swap this piece of hardware out. So we can really do what I said at the beginning, is improve the customer's experience overall, and we can really stop the bleeding from the factory, and we can notify the stakeholders that need to be notified of this issue as quickly as possible. Is it product? Is it design? Is it safety? And like I said, really impact the customer experience at the end. And I believe you guys have mentioned that after maybe 10 or a dozen anomalies detected within the platform, Upstream can identify that as, hey, we need to fix this and we need to fix this now. And you can really help the OEM identify these issues to start.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Go ahead, Shaked.
Yeah, I just wanted to take us through a really cool example, really the holy grail of vehicle quality use cases to really emphasize how important this connected vehicle data is. So data outliers, like you said, are often the first indicators of a bigger issue, but they're easy to miss if you're not looking at the right data in the right way. And one of the best tools we have to handle those issues are over-the-air updates. They let OEMs push fixes quickly without needing to bring cars into the shop. So for example, in this use case, we're seeing 50,000 electric vehicles at risk of power loss because of a battery contactor was overheating. Of course, identified through connected vehicle data. And instead of going through a full-scale recall, the OEM just sent an OTA update to fix it, and boom, problem was solved. But here's the thing. If the OEM had used the data earlier, they wouldn't have needed to wait until 50,000 vehicles were affected. This could have stopped at 50. And that's the real power of using connected vehicle data in the right way. So to recap this example, Using connected vehicle data will allow OEMs to act faster on what's happening. It will allow accurate root cause analysis, knowing exactly what went wrong, and also understanding the impact. So what is the digital signature? Like, for example, in this use case, a specific ECU and a specific make, model, year, and what vehicles were impacted by the problem. And this is just a really great reminder of how valuable this connected data is. It gives OEMs the ability to monitor their fleets in real time, spot trends early, and take actions before a small issue becomes a really bigger one. And OTA, like you said, is a really good example of a way to turn actions before we're getting this snowball rolling and turn them into immediate solutions, saving costs, of course, also avoiding unnecessary repairs, but at most keeping customers a lot happier.
Yeah, I love this delighting customers, right? And I think this example was brilliant, Shaked. So thanks. It makes it real and clear. If we peel the onion, and I try to do this in a very non-technical way, right? Those contactors have a sensor, and this is just an example, that if monitored, could have indicated a rising issue. And Andrew, you were right? You don't need to wait until you have hundreds of cases of claims or warranty claims when people frustrated coming into the dealer or roadside assist. You can start earlier, right? And like Shaked, you brilliantly said, start earlier, identify the root cause sooner, and then determine the impact. Is it just going to affect 50 vehicles, or in this case, 50,000? I think this is a great example. So I think that, would it be fair to say, right, that what you're describing, Shaked and Andrew, is a shift left in the after sales quality investigation, right? You start the process following the data rather than following the hardware or the failed part, and you finish earlier because you can now look into many sources of data, right, to be able to fix the issue and help stop the defective VINs from going out of the factory, which is great, right? But delighting customers is fantastic. I think that it would be fair to say that safety is first, right? But beyond saving lives and delighting customers, we have here an Amazonian. Andrew, I'm looking at you, right? But this means that those of you who don't reside the Amazon LPs, things must be data-driven, right? And data-driven connected vehicles, I know you've been very familiar with over the past couple of years now. We're just back from CES, and then just before it, re:Invent announcement around Bedrock. Let's talk about Gen AI and what does it mean for AWS customers to be AI ready?
Yeah, so all the recent announcements over the last year or so, when we start talking about Gen AI, this is probably, I'll give a little preview of what we'll talk about in a second, but yeah, making sure that the data is prepared, structured, normalized in such a way that our tools and services for Gen AI and AI can be implemented easily, successfully. So just one example of that, it kind of brings this whole story together. We've recently got brought in working with an OEM, a segmented, siloed department, right, that needed to be able to identify DTCs within their connected vehicle data. So we started with terabytes of data, and they said, hey, we just need an easy way for our team to query these DTCs to be able to identify potential issues with our test fleet for ADAS data collection. And so within, I think it took us about 3 or 4 days, we had this data decoded, parsed, persisted within S3 for a data lake, AI ready to be able to build Bedrock APIs on top for natural language queries for these engineers who do not know SQL, to be able to query that data, the DTCs, to be able to identify them and be able to really kind of accelerate their development for their ADAS fleet. And so it's just a great example of how we can use data lakes being AI ready and the services that AWS provides to be able to build these types of platforms for our customers.
Wow. So I think we at Upstream took this notion, right, and we were really excited when the latest announcement came. Gen AI in general, but the specific capabilities. But couple that with what Shaked, you mentioned as the digital twin of each and every vehicle, and then what you mentioned earlier on, Andrew, the 4 layers of abstraction of looking not only on a single vehicle timeline, but also at the fleet or cohort, at the component level. You mentioned ADAS. This all makes it maybe, takes the data plane into an analytics readiness level, which is fantastic. Shaked, maybe I turn to you and ask, what does AI ready mean for automotive data experts?
So making data AI and ML ready, it's not just a technical challenge, of course it is, but it's also a strategic priority. It requires cross-functional collaboration between data engineers, AI and ML specialists, and of course, domain experts from the automotive space. And when done right, it can unlock actionable insights. Think about it this way. So when you ask a generative AI layer a question like, which vehicles are most at risk of a critical failure in the next 30 days? It's leveraging large language models, LLMs, to query massive amounts of data from multiple sources. And you don't need to be a SQL expert or a data scientist. It democratizes access to data across silos, making insights more accessible to everyone, really. So to me, there's the catch here. We have to notice. We can't query the entire data set at once, right? The sheer volume, velocity, and variety of automotive data makes that impossible. And instead, we need to aggregate and parse and pre-structure the data into meaningful queryable tables. And the reasons those preparations are so critical are, of course, efficiency, because without structured tables, every query would need to process terabytes of raw data, slowing everything down. Accuracy as well. So pre-structured data ensures queries are targeting the right data sets, minimizing noise, but also irrelevant results. And lastly, of course, scalability. With data already prepped, you can run more queries faster and at scale. So the real value here is when the data is prepared correctly, Bedrock can then generate actionable insights instantly. Instead of spending hours sifting through raw logs, you can now just ask high-level questions like, which component failure have the highest warranty cost impact? Or what are the early indicators of recurring brake system malfunctioning? And get clear, prioritized answers backed by the data. That's amazing. So to just sum all that up, I think that the magic of AI does not start when the question starts. It starts with how well we've prepared the data to answer it.
Yeah, and just as an insight from my perspective, we've heard Gen AI for the past year plus, and to be able to see it put into action for our automotive customers is really amazing. And we showed a demo like this at reInvent and CES, and it really helps, like you said, Shaked, democratize the data, maybe remove some of those silos, remove some of those titles of data scientists, right? And so for those demos that we showed at CES and reInvent, we have the capability for not only the internal teams at automakers to be able to query this data, but hey, even the end customer, hey, why am I seeing this DTC code pop up? Or what is this icon in my IVI and cockpit mean? Why am I seeing, why is my car making some strange noise? So all these features of the services like Bedrock to be able to unlock the democratization of the data for not just the data scientists, but essentially everybody within the organization.
I'm really so excited of listening to the two of you, because we basically said, hey, take all those raw data signals, right? And they come from various sources, and build them to be analytics ready, not only at the data lake level, but at the platform level, and then abstract them in 4 layers, and then be able to ask your data anything Well, that's really exciting. I mean, we're very strong Bedrock fans, but it's really crucial for quality teams to be able to ask whatever they want to ask, right? Obviously, you can't monitor what you don't detect, right? But Gen AI seems to be the ultimate tool to really come at this level of maturity and help with anyone, maybe even in product or maybe in customer support, to ask non-intuitive questions, which the answers might be hidden in those terabytes of daily data. But now you make this accessible, so you're basically allowing after sales quality teams creativity and agility, and I really love that. Switching gears, because times is passing pretty fast, right? But if we're looking at the quality as an industry-wide challenge, Andrew, tell us a little bit about what you see in terms of numbers, right? Overall industry relating to warranty and recall.
Yeah, so now that we've kind of touched on how AWS can help solve these problems and what the data architecture could look like in terms of that piece of the puzzle, let's focus on which Upstream is helping solve for, right? So it's very clear that the impact of recalls is crucial to OEMs. And according to Warranty Week in 2023, major global automakers paid I believe $51 billion in warranty claims, and that's a year-over-year increase of 17% from 2022. And additionally, warranty reserves grew by 14%, reaching over 140 billion by the end of 2023.
Wow, yeah, those are really big numbers. I think that you know, myself being an ex-Amazonian, but also being obsessed with data, we tried to really research and survey many of our customers, and what we heard is that this goal to identify issue sooner, right, or faster by 30%, in some cases, right, start to end, right, putting a fix to the field and making sure that there's no reoccurrence, and the early signs, right, the early claims, right, it could be weeks or maybe months faster in some cases. And this is significant because you think about all the impact of bins going out of the factory, customer satisfaction going down. But we speak a lot about data, and I have to ask you, Shaked, when I mean, in your past role, right, you're that data expert, and we talked about connected vehicle data. I mean, not all quality issues can be discovered in data. In fact, that 30% mark of faster also indicates ballpark how many or what percentage of quality issues can be detected by connected vehicle data. But let me ask you, what are the data sources that you typically ingest in order to identify quality issues?
Sure. So the goal is really to create that single source of truth, like you said. And I would say, first of all, telematics. We really want to know what's happening in that vehicle. Then diagnostics. So whether it's periodically sent from the vehicle or something from a diagnostic device in the workshop. Dealership data, of course, claims. So we want to know if something went wrong and when. ROs, which are repair orders, something that happens even before warranty claims. And SBOM and HBOMs, of course. And like you said earlier, what you don't monitor, you can't detect.
Yeah, and we get this question all the time at AWS. I mean, this is probably one of the questions I hear on a weekly basis. How do I have all these disparate sources of data coming into a data lake, and then how do I distribute them to the personas, the silos, the departments that need it, right? So we're all about democratizing that data and delivering the right data at the right time to the right teams.
Yeah, I love that notion of democratizing, especially nowadays. But when I look at OEMs, right, they're most of their after-sales quality teams basically monitor the first 3 minutes, right? The first 3 months into service or 90 days to really spot the big issues. But if you think about advanced OEMs, what do they do to be more efficient, Shakid?
So I want to take us into another example of how this data-driven approach can really transform the investigation process. Imagine this. A field quality team gets a report that customers are experiencing a strange issue with the vehicle's performance. Let's say, for the example, it's just a sudden drop in power when driving under specific conditions. So traditionally, field teams would find a similar test vehicle with the same possible problematic components, pull the car apart, replicate the issue, then check physical components, and work through a process of trial and error to figure out what's causing it. And this is a forensic, hands-on approach. And while it's super valuable, it's also very time-consuming and often doesn't scale well when we're talking about data across hundreds or thousands of vehicles. Now, with the data-driven approach, investigation teams can take a step back and look at the broader data landscape. Those teams can now pull data from the vehicles themselves, like I said, diagnostic information, ECU logs, telematics data. Instead of tearing apart each vehicle individually, they can instantly start analyzing patterns across the entire fleet. So for example, if they notice that the issue occurs more frequently in a vehicle that has a specific type of software version or a certain geographic region with specific weather conditions, this pattern recognition, those digital signature, how we like to call it, those help narrow down the root cause much faster. And rather than guessing, teams can now pinpoint anomalies, analyze data, and tie that directly to the potential root cause. And one of the best key benefits here is not just solely relying on traditional trial and error. We have real-time insights to tell us exactly where to focus our investigation. And we can even use machine learning and AI to predict where similar issues might crop up in the future. And so for me, that's the best part. No more waiting for the next customer complaint or dealership report. OEMs can prevent problems before they become widespread, and all that can be done much earlier in the process. So while the field teams is doing their critical job of verifying and investigating, the data can empower them with better tools, faster insights, and ultimately better outcomes for the customers.
I love that. So if I recap, right, the being data-driven, allowing to be analytics ready and AI ready, you can abstract, democratize, analyze, investigate, and get to root cause analysis, and then patch, right? The earlier, the better.
Amazing.
I love that. Okay, so let's do a quick time check. What do you say, Shakid? Do we have time for another example? Because I find those fascinating.
Well, I think we have time for one more, if that's okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, awesome. So I want to take us through the last scenario. We all know that too well, an issue for an OEM with they are super familiar with. They know the indicated signature of the problem. So it's usually a combination of very specific conditions happening all together. Let's say a specific DTC code, a high value of a signal. Let's, for the example, assume engine coolant temperature, known problematic software version of a fuel pump ECU, for example, and all that happening in a specific make, year, model. And in some cases, the OEM even knows how to solve the problem. And let's say for this example, upgrading the ECU software version of the fuel pump mentioned. So the tricky part here is that these issues aren't necessarily present in every single vehicle. It's not a widespread manufacturing defect, but rather isolated incidents that are happening through enough time to raise flags over warranty claims and potential customer dissatisfaction. With the traditional approach we mentioned earlier, it might be to wait until the issue recurs, respond reactively, and fix the affected vehicles one by one as they roll into service centers. But what if we could flip that approach entirely? What if we could proactively monitor those issues in real time? So with the power of comprehensively collected data and domain expert detection capabilities, we can spot these patterns early. We can flag potential failures before they cause noticeable problems for the customers. Now imagine this. The system detects a pattern and automatically sends an alert to the dealership. The message might say something like, hey, this specific vehicle is showing early signs of an issue with its 12-volt battery pack. Let's bring it in, replace the problematic part, and send the customer back on the road with zero inconvenience. This is not just about avoiding the warranty cost or improving operational efficiency. This is about proactively enhancing the customer experience. And it's about making sure drivers never even have to deal with the headache of a malfunctioning vehicle.
I love those examples. I really do. They bring to life, what we're talking about. We talked about 3 takeaways, which means we're getting close to going to questions and answers. And you guys have sent a lot, and I hope we'll have time to answer a few. But just as a recap, right? We're now at a tough time for the automotive industry, and you're tasked to provide creative solutions and find an edge or a competitive edge. And it seems like you're sitting on a pot of gold where connected vehicle analytics brought up those layers can provide such innovative competitive edge. So after sales quality using those advanced data analytics, like the digital twin with the digital signatures Shaked use, and the central data lakes and AI powered investigation can really fast track and uncover complex insights that are otherwise hard to tap into. So that's the first key takeaway. Mine. Andrew, you want to take the second one?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, AI and ML, like we've talked about on this call, are really transforming quality and investigations. And from an AWS perspective, really seeing the fact that our services, from Gen AI to ML, from our connected vehicle platforms, IoT Core, and FleetWise, to normalize that data and connect the OEMs to the cloud so they can focus on these quality investigations, right? It's really transformative within the industry to be able to see and assess the severity of these anomalies at scale and be able to identify these trends across fleets. Our services for AI and ML and Gen AI are empowering these automakers to really shift from kind of a reactive mode of working to a proactive capability to detect early, to be able to identify these issues and focus their efforts where they have the greatest impact to the organization.
Okay. And Shaked, can you walk us through the last takeaway?
Yeah, I'd say for me, the real opportunity lies in how we use the data at our disposal. When we look at the complexity and volume of automotive data today, it's not just about collecting more of it. It's about using it effectively. The power of these data strategies, that's not just theoretical. It's already changing how we approach data management and quality management. By tapping into those insights, we can identify issues proactively, which means less risk, less cost, and much better customer experience.
Amazing. All right. It's time for those questions. And I do see a very, very long list. So I'll try to pick up maybe just a few. Let me see. Andrew, I see a controversial question. I love that. Okay, so is AI making money or saving money, or is it a waste of money at this point in time?
Yeah, we get this a lot. So I'm going to give my standard essay answer. Well, it depends. Now, if you are going to work with AWS and work with our extremely talented group of data analytics, data scientists, solution architects to ensure your data is normalized, standardized in a optimized AWS service to be able to provide analytics ready AI, and you have the specific use case where AI and Gen AI can really enable cost reduction, which is what we've talked about for the past 45 minutes or so, then certainly it's going to be saving money for these OEMs and these automakers at this point. So not to back out of AI really making money and saving money at this point. But in this use case, obviously, I think what we've shown today is demonstrating that AI and Gen AI can really accelerate, these insights and analytics and reduce costs at a huge scale.
Fantastic, fantastic. I like the way you walk that thin line, but I'm gonna pick maybe one other question to you, Shaked. Not putting you on the spot, but what has been the biggest hurdles across the industry in activating connected vehicle use cases?
Okay, so having grown in the data field and grown up there, I've had the opportunity to work with data sets from a wide range of OEMs, from the largest in the world to some very niche ones. And what's fascinating is that despite their differences, they all have the same fundamental challenges when it comes to utilizing connected vehicles data. And those are the biggest hurdles. I mentioned that before, but fragmented data. OEMs deal with data from countless sources, vehicles, sensors, dealerships, and it's rarely consistent. And it's like speaking different languages. The key to overcoming this is data normalization, creating a single source of truth so that insights can flow seamlessly across the whole organization. Something, again, we mentioned that before, but garbage in, garbage out. Poor quality of data leads to poor results. That does not matter how advanced the tools you're using are. Automakers must invest in data cleansing and validations to ensure that data is AI ready, paving the way for accurate analytics and smarter decisions. And lastly, I would say accessibility. With tools like generative AI and natural language interfaces, we can democratize data access, empowering anyone, not just data scientists, not just data analysts, to ask questions and act on those insights. So from my experience across the industry, these hurdles are universal, but also the solution, so that's great. And so normalizing data and ensuring the quality of the data and democratizing the access, those steps will unlock for sure the true potential of the connected vehicle data.
Wow, I'm impressed. I'll tell you what, time flies when you're having fun. The other way around, right? Sorry, but we're really getting close to the top of the hour. We're really excited. So I wanted to thank you, Andrew and Shaked, for joining me in that first webinar, in that series of webinars that we're planning to talk about this topic. So thank you so much for spending time with us.